Here we have Rise of the Beast Scourge and CHEETOR by YOLO Park. These YOLO Park figures are officially licensed third-party figures. Well, actually, these are model kits and are some of the most insane, detailed, and easiest to assemble kits. Thank you to YOLO Park for sending these to me. Taking a look at the box art for Scourge, we get some really sick artwork. Two really badass images of him that show off he's a pretty evil guy. On the back, we can kind of see how the kit assembles and a more detailed image of Scourge. These are essentially how all the pieces look. As you can see, they are huge parts, unlike a Gunpla kit. They have a lot of detail on them in addition to being already painted. Putting it together was super easy and satisfying to do, similar to doing drugs. And the instructions are literally on this small piece of paper. By the way, I do finally have that RC model kit, and I'll get to that eventually. A kit like this takes a bit more time to build, while these are much easier. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes to finish it. I was also filming it at the time, which makes it a bit more difficult. Here is Scourge, and wow, he looks amazing. He looks like the type of guy you would be concerned about your friend dating, because he's a killer. He kills people. Since these figures can't transform, I know, a non-transforming figure, oh no, but hear me out, the detail is amazing, and he has really good articulation, which is what these figures are going for, and that's okay. They did it right, unlike the Red series. That Starscream figure was a mess. This kit is long, tall, lanky, he has a bit of an arched back, which makes him look kinda, you know. Here he is next to the YOLO Park CHEETOR, Optimus Prime, Optimus Primal, and Bumblebee. Now let's take a closer look at the figure's head, and there is something very interesting about this, which we will get to in a second. It is looking really good and is sculpted really nicely. The mask is done incredibly well, and I do like a little bit of the battle damage detail they have on it. It really adds to the character's aesthetic. He has some very jaggedy looking teeth, and it seems like there's a few nub marks left from production, but it still does look very cool. I really do like the mask and the horns he has on top, and what's really fun is that we can take off the mask, which is a little bit hard to do on camera, as I am struggling. There we go. And we do get his horrifying face. There is a massive gaping hole up there from where the mask plugs into, but I would replace it, but this is kind of hard to take off right now, and I am what they call a lazy piece of shit, so I'm not going to do that. But I do like how we have this damaged section of his face where you can get a closer look at some of his insides. It's kind of gross, but it's pretty cool. His eye kind of extruding like that is really gross, along with all these extra damaged parts. There is red and yellow paint for the eyes. The detail throughout the neck of the figure is done very well. The shoulder pieces do have this nice armored look to it and are very angular with some tiny rivets on there. We can also see some of the insignias taken from his victims, and as we move further down to the biceps, we can see more of them. This piece is a little bit loose. Inside the bicep, we do get some nice details here, and further down, we get a nicely sculpted forearm section with even more insignias throughout it. His right hand is a claw, which can be swapped for a weapon. I'll show that later. And the claw does have some articulation to it. They do remind me of Doc Ock's tentacles. Tentacles. They are sculpted nicely and have a bit of detail on the inside. So this arm and the insignias on it are pretty much the same as this side, until we get further down to the forearm, which does look different. He does have an actual hand here with some very long and lanky fingers, which do look evil. And these spikes are pretty pointy, so you will have to be careful with them. I almost ripped the skin off my own finger when putting this guy down. This is a silly little guy. This is meant for adult collectors. If you were to hold this in the wrong way and bring this up, you could accidentally hurt yourself. In fact, let's do a paper test. Here's a piece of paper. Oh, wow. I do love the insignias on him that he rips apart from his kills. Not entirely accurate placement to the movie, if that is something you care about. I don't. Two Autobot insignias are cut off, and as you can see, some of them just look kind of funky. That is kind of a downside. I really do like the detail in some of the more hard to see areas as well. Oh, no, don't fall apart. No, please. No. I'll address that later. The chest area is nice with that front grille for the truck mode. Everything on here looks great. You have this caged look up here, and whatever all this is, some minor red paint applications, and this is how it looks underneath. When you take your time and look at this figure, you really appreciate all the tiny things. I do like how underneath the chest are wheels for the truck mode. Such a nice touch, which could have easily been skipped out on. It's not a full wheel and just half a wheel, so when you do tilt the chest, it's cut off and it looks kind of weird. The abdomen is nicely done and painted. I kind of like the layering look going on here, along with what appears to be some nice pipe detail. Now let's talk about his crotch. This is very important. Okay, so this part does pop off sometimes. This kit does hold well together most of the time. As you saw earlier, some parts don't stay in place the best. Now down to his legs, he does have some wheels molded in, and on this side, I do like this tiny bit of detail in what appears to be a red spring. The rest of the legs and feet are designed really well. There's a lot of intricate work going on here. Now the back back also looks very intricate. There is a lot to unpack here. Up here we have the smokestacks, and the spinal design is done just so well. For his accessories, we do get his blaster. This pegs on from over here, and this does look very nice in my opinion. But my favorite weapon is this blade. Pretty long and designed very well. I do like all the battle damage on here. So for the blaster, we'll just take this off and attach this on like so. And that does look very cool. We can have these pieces laying down, or we can spread them out all the way. And I do like how the design of its fingers remain on this. For the blade, the place to put it on is discreetly on the back. It's kind of hard to tell, but it goes right over there. And we just place it in like so. And that is pretty cool looking. So now for the figure's articulation, the head can move up and down and can rotate. And you can pretty much move the neck around with it as well. This panel can move. Shoulder pads can move. We can bring the arm out. This can move. Also a butterfly joint. We get a rotation, bicep rotation, elbow bend. This can spin. And we get 2 points of articulation for the claws. Chest can rotate and we can tilt it. Once again, this might pop off. We do get abdomen rotation. I really do like how we get 3 points of articulation for the fingers, except for the thumb, which is on a hinge joint over here, and we get 1 point of articulation here. This leg can drop out and we can bring it out all the way up here. We can bring it back over there. Rotation, if we bend the knee, we might find it to be a bit limiting, but if we open that flap, we can bend it 90 degrees. Also, this piece just fell off. A foot rotation, a foot pivot. This front toe can move. This bit can move up and down. So this figure does have a lot of great points of articulation. It's just that some pieces are kind of loose. They really went all out with this model kit, and I think it looks pretty good. Now let's take a look at CHEETOR. And here is the YOLO Park CHEETOR. And this guy also looks amazing. The proportions on him look great. All the colors on him look great. Well, the color on him looks great. I actually thought to myself this one probably wouldn't be as impressive as the SCOURGE figure, but this is still a really good one. I'm pretty impressed by it. It's kind of hard to say if he exactly resembles his movie counterpart because you only saw him in the movie for like 0.5 seconds, which is a total disappointment, by the way. So if you did want to see more of him in the movie, this is going to be your next best bet. And what I do like about this is that it is more reminiscent to his original Beast Wars counterpart. SCOURGE definitely looked very different in the movie than his original counterpart, but this one still seems to have a bit more of that classic design. So he's basically pretty much just one color with some cheetah spots all over him. And they're pretty much mostly up in the upper body area, none really down here in the legs. The color also is pretty similar to what we saw in Beast Wars. And this figure also comes with some extra accessories for the YOLO Park Bumblebee. And I'll talk more about that later. Now the head on this figure is done very well. This one has a closed off mouthpiece, unlike in Beast Wars where he did have a mouse. Unlike in Beast Wars where he did have a mouth. He does have that upper section here, like in Beast Wars. The ears are definitely a lot shorter. You do have some nice silver paint and green eyes. Overall, I do like the head sculpt on here. Shoulders, we get some nice broad and bulky round shoulders. Coming further down the arms, there is some really nice detail here. So you can see some of it over here, which does look really nice, but a lot of it gets covered up by this section. If we remove this section, we will see a whole lot of detail that unfortunately gets covered up by this arm piece. Now, what is also very interesting about the arms is that you can see a little bit of fur detail, which is really cool. That wasn't supposed to happen. Oh, well, it popped off. Well, there's a look at that detail once again. That is one thing about model kits which I've never liked. Pieces keep popping off. Now, as I was going to say, I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, as I was going to say, it is nice to have that fur detail because these are maximals and they do turn into animals. Now, we can come down to the hands, where he does have his really long weapons. These come pre-attached to the hands. He does come with other hand pieces. They also have these attached on there. And the hands do have a bit of great design on them. Coming over to the chest piece, I don't know if it's just me, but there does seem to be some sort of resemblance to that cheetah head that the original CHEETOR had in Beast Wars. I don't know if you can see it in this area. It could just be my mind making things up. I don't know. Let me know if you see it in the comments below. But up here, here's a closer look at the rest of his chest. You can see his maximal insignia. I almost missed that. But other than that, not a whole lot of chest detail on this figure. The abdomen area is done really nicely. I do like that. And this figure does have a lot more slimmer proportions. Coming down to the legs, sculpted pretty well. You can see a bit of the mechanical detail inside, along with some areas of silver paint on the figure, some tiny little bits of fur, and some more mechanical detail down at the feet, and with his claws sticking out at the end. Luckily, these are not super pointy like they are on the SCOURGE kit. Now, if we turn the figure over to the back, we get some really nice fur detail in this back section. Further down, a really insane looking spinal column. This entire back section looks really great. Rest of the back, pretty basic stuff. And overall, the design of CHEETOR here is done incredibly well. I personally don't care for CHEETOR a whole lot as a character, but I think this design just looks really cool, and it would have been great to see more of him like this in the movie. So for the figure's accessories, you get this, which you connect together to form a staff for the figure. Here's a closer look at it. There's not really a whole lot of detail on this, and really the best way to have him hold it is to separate it, put one side in, and then connect the other side. And then you have him holding his spear staff weapon thing. For Cheetor's other hands, we basically get these two open hands, and then we get these other pair of hands. And actually, we can try to see if this is removable. Oh, it is. Okay, so they are removable, but now we do get this peg over here. Also, once again, I really like some of that hand detail on the inside. My personal preference, however, is basically... This piece is going to keep coming off, isn't it? But as I was saying earlier, I basically prefer the closed hands on this. Also, it seems like this piece has gotten a bit loose on mine and will probably keep popping out real easily. Now, all other accessories this kit comes with are basically for Bumblebee. You get his battle mask, which is designed really well, a tiny bit of silver paint application, and the Autobot insignia on the forehead. We also get two of his hand cannons, and the tips of these are sculpted very well, and I do love the gunmetal gray color they have going on. So putting on the headpiece for Bumblebee requires taking off his regular face, and then we can take this mask and place it on top. Bring those out, and that's how he looks there. Now for the hands, all we really have to do is take this off, and these go on facing this way. Put them on. Now a few things to mention is that these bits right here are kind of sharp, so be a little bit careful when handling these and putting it on. On top of that, these do seem to come off pretty easily, so that is another thing to note. But we basically put it on with the pointy sharp side on the gray side of his arms. And once again, be careful putting that on because you might hurt yourself. And here he is fully geared up, looking pretty cool, I think. Once again, my only major issue is these popping off. Now, I don't know if it's just me. It seems like the yellow for the new pieces doesn't entirely match the rest of the kit. It might be a little bit hard to pick up on camera, but hopefully you can kind of see it there. Even with the battle mask, it seems like the yellow color is a little bit different from the rest of the kit. Now, let's move on to the articulation for the figure. This head can move up and down. This neck area can move back and forth, tilt side to side, and a full 360 rotation. The shoulder pieces can move. We do get rotation at the arms. For the elbows, we do get an elbow bend that is pretty good in my opinion. This piece did just fall off. His arm also did just pop out. Hand is on a ball joint. Chest can tilt, some rotation. You do get a crunch as well. Leg can drop down and move forward all the way up there. We can also bring it back there. It seems like this piece gets in the way. It always feels like this piece is about to pop off. And some leg movement out to the side. We can get a pretty good knee bend on this. Leg rotation. For the feet, we get a tilt. We get a foot pivot and some toe movement, which is kind of hard to get at. So overall, the articulation for this and the Scourge are pretty good. I think you can get a wide variety of dynamic poses with them. Now let's move on to comparisons. As of now, we currently only have CHEETOR and Optimus Primal. They are releasing a Rhinox at some point. Primal is just a little bit taller than CHEETOR, and I really do think Yolo Park did a great job capturing the designs of this figure, all the way down to the colors, proportions, the mechanical details, and even the animal textures are done really well for both of these kits. And these are essentially some of the best non-transforming figures out there when pieces aren't falling off. One thing I really liked about this Optimus Primal is the battle damage he has. CHEETOR over here looks a lot more clean and new. Now here is CHEETOR next to Optimus Prime, who is also a little bit shorter than, and here he is next to Bumblebee, the one guy he is shorter than. Yolo Park has done a really great job with these model kits. We do get a few loose pieces here and there. Overall though, the sculpt of all these kits and the level of detail they have on them really make them stand out as some of the best non-transforming figures out there, and at $30, these are pretty great.